everyone. So why don't we get started?
Sure. Okay. Hello, everyone. Hello from Tokyo. It's 10 a.m. in Tokyo, and a good evening for those who are in the US. This is a virtual fair for CIEE Global Navigator High School Study Abroad Tokyo, Japan program. And okay, let's get started. The first slide. Okay, all right. First of all, thank you so much for everyone joining today's session. We are so thrilled to meet each of you. Today, we are going through some slides to explain about the program and the city, about for 15 minutes or so, and you will have time to ask questions after our presentation. It will be about 1 hour in total, and we hope it will be helpful to and get you excited about joining Tokyo program in next summer. And let's see on the first slide. Here is a map of Japan, and please raise your hand if you have been to Tokyo or Japan. Anyone have been to Tokyo or Japan? Yes, we see some student. Oh yeah, oh great. Yeah, some student and some parents have been to Tokyo and Japan, great. And I'm glad you are thinking to come to Tokyo again in next summer. And please raise your hand. This will be the first time traveling abroad. Is there anyone? I see two students. Great. Yeah, I'm glad Tokyo might be the first place for you to travel abroad. It's great. And I assume most of you are in the US and right now. So from the United States to Tokyo, it takes about 9 hours from the West Coast and 12 hours from the East Coast. And in Japan, we have 2 centers. One is in Tokyo, which we are going to introduce today, and the other one is in Kyoto. Maybe some of you might join the Kyoto session yesterday. The course themes are shown on the slide. Tokyo is about Japanese pop culture, anime, manga, and gaming, whereas Kyoto is about Japanese language and culture. And on the slide, you see 3 staff photos. The photo left, David Satterwhite serves as the center director at CIEE Kyoto Center. Here in Tokyo, myself, Atsuko Yamada, serves as the acting center director, and Hazuki Kato serves as the manager student life. Let me briefly introduce myself first. I have overseen all aspects of CIE Tokyo operations, including student services, finance, program development, and corporate management. I joined CIEE in 2013, and it's my pleasure to work at CIE Tokyo for nearly 8 years. Before I joined CIEE, I was a student advisor for students in Japan who want to study abroad for 11 years. So overall, I've been in the study abroad industry for nearly 20 years. Hazuki-san, would you like to introduce yourself to everyone?
Of course. Thank you. Nice to meet you, everyone. My name is Hazuki. I am a manager of student life in CIE Tokyo. Myself, before joining CIEE, I worked at both outbound, inbound study abroad field, including at universities in Tokyo for over 20 years. Back in summertime in 2019, just before the COVID spreading around, I met many high school students just like yours, and then I witnessed how they enjoy their adventure days in Tokyo. I really look forward to host you, and I promise to be a good navigator for CIE students. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Hazuki-san. Also today, we have our colleague joining from our headquarters in the US. Nate, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Thanks. Yes, I'm Nate Dyer. I'm the Director of Pre-College Programs at CIE. I work out of the Portland, Maine office, our headquarters worldwide. And I've had the pleasure of visiting with Atsuko and her team a few times in Japan over the last couple of years. So I'm very excited to having had a year off from this program rather due to COVID. I'm looking forward to getting students back to Japan this upcoming summer and working with all of you over the course of the next few months and getting you prepared to travel with us. So very nice meeting all of you, and thank you Atsuko and Hazuki for hosting tonight's virtual fair.
Thank you, Nate. Okay, let's go on the next slide. Okay, there are so many reasons, but there are 4 major reasons for you to go to Japan. First, immerse yourself in the Japanese-speaking environment. Now you want to use it, make friends, improve it, and impress with it. And second, you want to take a deep dive into Japanese pop culture, manga, anime, and games. And third, the history. You will be able to wander in cosmopolitan city and visit places that made history. And fourth, eat the food. World reverse Japanese cuisine, and don't forget to try delicious Japanese food from convenience stores. You see the photo here. This is taken at the Cup Noodle Museum in Yokohama. Students enjoy learning the history of ramen and making own cup noodles. We are planning to visit there during the high school program in next summer. Tokyo highlights. Here are some Tokyo highlights. Please imagine you have just landed in Tokyo. It's a metropolis, but not overwhelming, lots to see and do. The city is safe, efficient, cosmopolitan, easy to navigate when you get used to it. Check out the city's cool spot for fashion, shopping, stuffing use. Take a selfie atop Tokyo Tower or the Skytree. Journey to the land of Totoro at Studio Ghibli. Eat. You name it, Tokyo has it. Japanese and global cuisine for all you foodies. Temples, hidden garden, imperial palace, parliament, famous street, and neighborhood. Okay. Now we would like to talk about the Tokyo High School Summer Abroad program. It's a 3-week-long program about Japanese pop culture. You can choose from 2 starting dates, either June or July. Main theme is about Japanese pop culture. Especially you will explore 3 creative industries, anime, manga, and gaming. You will also have 15 hours interactive Japanese language class. You will have a chance to practice your Japanese in a place where local people are. You also have daily cultural activities and excursions. And of course, you will have free time to explore and have fun. And breakfast and dinner are served at TCYH. I'll explain about TCYH in the next slide. And get lunch at neighborhood. You find a lot of nearby TCYH. And the photo here is at the orientation, and the bottom one is the calligraphy shodo activity during the session. Okay, this is about TCYH, Tokyo Central Youth Hostel. This is a place where Tokyo High School Summer Abroad program will be implemented. Tokyo Youth Hostel, so-called TCYH, is located in the heart of Tokyo and only a few minutes from JR station and Metro subway station. Typical room has 2 bunk beds and 4 students are in the same room. There are shared bathroom, shower booths, cafeteria to have breakfast and dinner, and a lounge to hang out with other program fellows. Your classroom is also in the same building, so you don't need to commute every day by train or bus. As explained earlier, daily activities, guest lectures, and excursions are planned throughout the program. These activities are designed to show you certain aspects of Japanese art, cuisine, history, religion, and so forth. The photos are at the bamboo forest in Kamakura, wearing yukata, summer cotton kimono, traveling by a packed local train, and fire extinguisher training. So these photos were taken pre-COVID, so probably we will need more distance for the next summer. Okay. And about COVID-19 and the current condition in Japan. This has been everyone's concern in the world for the past 2 years. And in Japan, the vaccine inoculation rate increased as 70%, and people kept wearing masks and refraining from gathering. The new COVID cases decreased dramatically these days. Therefore, 10 days ago, the Japanese government announced to relax the travel restriction for the business people and the international student who will study more than 3 months with study visa. We are hoping the travel restriction lifted to short-term travelers by the time you will come to Japan. Although the COVID cases are quite low, people in Japan are expected to wear masks whenever interacting with other people, either indoor or outdoor. And use hand sanitizer frequently and check the temperature when entering indoor facilities. We will keep updating the situation as the time gets closer, so please check closely out the information from us. This is a reminder from CIEE. Hazuki will put the link in the chat box, so please check the details from the link. And I read the information. Want to register for more sessions like this one? Check out our full schedule in the chat box. And want to save $200 on your CIE application? Find a CIE alum in your school and ask for their unique referral link. Any application you start through an alumni referral link will automatically get you $200 off. If you are currently working on your application, please make sure to finish it by December 1st. You will be included in a raffle to win a free flight. For further questions on the application process, please join our application workshop on Thursday, or feel free to contact our team in Portland. And you see the information in chat box. Thank you, Hazuki-san. And this is the last of the my presentation. And here's a QR code of Tokyo and Kyoto's Instagram account. Please follow us if you haven't done so. We regularly post what's new in Tokyo and Kyoto and our programs going forward. So please check out our account. Okay. And Now we would like to move on Q&A session, and it's time for you to ask questions. So please feel free to type your question in the chat box, as we would like to answer as many as questions as possible.
I have a question.
Yes, Raiden, you have question?
Yeah. What
Yes.
is the living situation gonna be like? You probably like mentioned it, but what can we expect?
Sorry, I was not able to catch all sentence. So what was the
What is
question?
what is the living situation gonna be like?
Living situation, housing,
Yeah.
about the housing during
Yes.
the, okay, yeah, housing, maybe we can go back to the slide. Your housing is at this Tokyo Central Youth Hostel, TCYH. And
Atsuko, I'll put the link. I'll put the link to their website in the chat as
okay.
well.
Oh, thank you so much.
We'll have
Yeah.
it.
You see more information from the link, but this is a photo of the building, tall high-rise building, and then there are typical room. It has 2 bunk bed in 1 bedroom, so 4 students are in the same room, and then you will have a shared bathroom, cafeteria, and a lounge. And also the classroom is also in the same building.
Atsuko, I can go up through the chat and ask you questions if that's easier for you. Some of these I can answer myself, but
Okay,
some of them I
that'll be
think would be
great.
better for you. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So Meredith asks whether or not they need to bring their own art supplies on the program.
Okay, at this moment, I think not necessary to bring any specific art material, but as time get closer, I think we will give more details for the program, about the program. So you may want to bring on, if that's more comfortable, you may want to bring on materials, but at this moment, there is nothing to prepare. We will give you more details.
I would say as well, Meredith, we run a lot of similar types of programs, and normally supplies would be provided to you. But as Atsuko said, if there are specific things that you wish to bring yourself that you feel more comfortable using, you can of course do that. Shannon, let's see, Shannon asks, can you discuss pricing and extras? We live in Alaska to see how, trying to see how flights work. So I can answer that question, Shannon. So the program itself is inclusive of all on-site expenses. So that would mean transportation, for instance, all meals, activities, guides, so on and so forth. The only on-program expenses that you may have would be spending money for free time, for instance, souvenirs, things along those. We would also provide phones if needed for students, but a lot of students choose to bring their own devices, and we can provide SIM cards, for instance. So there may be some expense for a phone, but we are able to provide those if students prefer to have us do so. In terms of the cost of the program is $5,650. There is scholarship funding available. So if you went onto our website, and I'll put the link here in the chat, you'll be able to access the application and find more information in the FAQ about scholarship funding. And the last point I would make from a cost point of view is, as you mentioned, flights are an expense that students are responsible for. Flights aren't included in the cost of the program. And travelers would have essentially 2 or 3 different options to get to Tokyo. So you can choose to travel directly from your closest home airport. So it sounds like you're in Alaska. So you could fly, for instance, from Alaska, certainly with a layover or 2 on your way to Tokyo, separate from the rest of the program. So just selecting whatever may be the easiest, most cost effective. Alternatively, students have the option of flying with a CIE chaperone. So either a CIE staff member based in our Portland, Maine office or around the country, or one of the program leaders who will be accompanying the program for the duration of the 3 weeks. So that would be a second option, would be to meet at what we call a gateway airport for Tokyo. That will likely either be Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, maybe New York. We'll have to see what flight options look like. And so you could select to travel to one of those gateway airports and then fly with other students and with a chaperone as part of what we call a group flight. So those are the options in terms of getting there. And that's, I think, the information you were likely looking for in terms of costs. Nicholas asked, I missed most of this meeting. Is there a way for me to access a recording of it through the site?
Yep, the answer is yes, and we will provide a recording one later after this session. So please check out the recording one.
Atsuko or Hazuki, can you comment about how much independent time students may have? Kyle rather asked how much freedom is allowed on the program.
Let me share the previous experience I witnessed the 2 years ago in HSSA in summer. And it's because the freedom, of course, you get free time after the curriculum or the program activity you attend. But, you know, according to HSS, which health, safe, and safety, that's very important keyword when we provide a program for everybody, including the college student, whoever. So for high school student, we try to make a quite packed program in a session. So if you maybe you feel this is very packed and then less chance to go by your own, but we also try to provide free time as much as possible, but we also encourage them to go in a group. Even though the free time a student go with group to go Shibuya, Harajuku, or Shinjuku. So we try to give you the free time, but not much, I'll be honest. Any comment, Atsuko-san?
Yeah, pretty much agree with you. But yeah, of course, we will take you lots of places as a group. But at the spot, also you will have some freedom for free time. Like for example, we go to Shibuya together, but you can spend 1 hour by your own to shop or hang around, and then go back to the TCYH together. Yeah, something like that. And you also have some free time during the program. But as Hazuki mentioned, this program is quite packed with many activities and coursework and classes. So yeah, you'll be busy for that 3 week.
In going down the list, we answered the question around housing. So Michelle had asked, are we staying at host family houses? But as we discussed, it's a hostel where the group stays. And if you didn't catch it, Michelle, I put the link with an 8:16 p.m. timestamp to the hostel's website for you to access there. Ayana asks whether or not it's required to know Japanese before going on the program. You want to comment on that?
You don't have to prepare any Japanese the skills before coming here in Tokyo. It's because this program is not a language session. But in addition, we in this 3 weeks program, there is the Japanese language lesson, 10 hours in a 3 week. So you can be survive, be safe, but you don't have to prepare the Japanese knowledge before you arriving in Japan.
Great. And going up, this is good. Everyone's asking good questions here.
Yeah.
The next question is, okay, so Kayla asked, I've applied to this program a couple weeks ago, but when do we get to know if we are accepted or not? So Kayla, that depends. So there's essentially 2 ways to apply, or 3 ways rather, to apply for the program. You have the option of applying, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, for scholarship funding. You can elect to either apply for merit and financial need-based funding, or you have the option of applying only for merit-based funding, in which case those scholarship percentages, as far as how much of the program cost would be covered, are capped more tightly than the scholarship application that would allow you to apply for merit and financial need. So you can apply for a scholarship, one of those 2 pathways. If you do, the scholarship deadline right now is, I believe, January 14th, and we wait to review all applications until the deadline passes. So if you apply for a scholarship, you likely will not hear until probably the beginning of February, I would guess. If you are not applying for a scholarship, you can simply apply through the web link that I included also in the chat, where it says apply now, and just elect not to apply for a scholarship, just complete the normal application, and we will issue an acceptance almost always within 2 weeks of applying. So those are the 2 different pathways and timelines in terms of acceptance onto the program. Amy asked, is track 1, so the anime portion, only in the earlier session, or are both tracks in both sessions?
It's in both session. We will do the same thing for session 1 and session 2. So you can join either session 1 from June or session 2 from July. It's the same session.
Great. Okay. And then going down, Kayla also asked about materials. We mentioned a few minutes ago, in case you missed it, Kayla, if there are any specific things that you wish to bring, you can of course do that. Supplies for the program will be provided on the program, but I know given the topic of the program, there may be an interest in bringing supplies that you're more comfortable with. So as we get closer to the start of the program, if there are in fact particular things that students are going to need access to, we can likely provide a list of those things. Again, we will provide those to students on site, but there may be some that want to bring the same items that they're comfortable using, for instance, from home. And Nia says about how many people are accepted into the program. Do either of you want to comment on what, I can as well, but if you want to comment on the likely sort of projection or number that we're likely to see in terms of participants?
Yep. At this moment, we are planning to about nearly 40 students for each session. Yeah. And then we will see how the application goes. But at this moment, 40 each session 1 and 2.
And Christine asks, how much Japanese language is needed to enjoy the trip? So I think she's asking not about a requirement, which we just talked about, but she says, how much Japanese language is needed to enjoy the trip? My high school student will have completed 2 years of remote high school Japanese language class.
Okay. Yeah, as Hazuki mentioned earlier, Japanese is not a requirement for this program. So the courses are taught in English, and the CIE local staff speaks English and Japanese. But I think local people, Japanese people, will be appreciated if you greet or in Japanese. So very basic Japanese. I think it'll be great if you have basic Japanese knowledge, like a konnichiwa, hello, or thank you, arigato, when you shop at a convenience store or greet at the TCYH facility people. So I think that's those general conversation you can. From the conversation, you can enjoy this session more.
And we have, let's see, quite a few questions about flights. So I'm going to do my best to try to address as many of those in one response as I can, because I know flights is a popular, flight questions rather, is a popular topic for a lot of folks, and the process can be a bit daunting. So as I mentioned, who asked about, do we travel to Tokyo by individually or in groups? So as I mentioned, students have the option of either traveling independently, so by themselves to Tokyo, or with the group through one of these major US hubs that flies directly, for instance, from the US to Tokyo. Those flights specifically will be chaperoned. Surely there will be other students. In an average year, around 60–70% of students do in fact choose to travel on these group flights. You will all get a lot more information about flight options, about flight language, flight FAQs, so on and so forth, likely in December. So you can expect readings to be posted in your CIE application with all of those details. So that's sort of the general option, would be either to travel individually or with a group, including a CIE chaperone. Another question around, do we have to use a specific airline when we buy plane tickets? So again, we're going to put parameters. For instance, we want students to arrive within certain arrival windows to allow for pickup, for instance, upon arrival, and drop off upon departure. So how it normally works is we will provide you, again, with the option to go with the group, or for those that want to fly independent of the group, perhaps if your family wants to travel with you, or if you just prefer to go on your own, we will give you the arrival windows in which you need to arrive to be picked up by CIE, and the departure windows at the end of the program that you need to depart within, to be dropped off by CIE at the airport. And that's not to say you have to choose from one or two airlines. You can choose any flight you want that fits within the window. In the documents that I mentioned, we'll post to your CIE accounts. We give other best practices around, basically how to select the best flights for yourself if you decide to go that route. And if you book with the group flight, we use a travel agency. Their name is FlightFox. They're wonderful. You can look their website up. It's flightfox.com. We use them for thousands of flight tickets that we purchase each year for students going on programs with us, staff, so on and so forth. They're excellent. They know what all of our group flights are. We select the group flights hand in hand. So I was actually working on that today. With a few contacts there. So again, you'll have all that information with the outlined options for travel. Likely in December, we'll publish that to your accounts. Now, we talked about at the beginning of this, Itsuko mentioned the volatility here with travel restrictions and entry requirements right now. As most of you know, as it stands today, you're not able to enter Japan from the US as a tourist. So we're all hopeful that those policies change as the COVID situation improves. But that's today's reality. You know, we have quite a few months ahead of us for that to be worked out. But what that means is when it comes to flight booking, we obviously don't want people to start booking flights before we have assurances and confidence that these programs will operate. Flights are very expensive. So we just ask for patience essentially in the flight booking process. We may not be suggesting or encouraging anyone to book flights until, you know, maybe sometime in February or March or even a little bit later than that. And that's for your own benefit, because we simply don't want people booking flights and committing non-refundable tickets for $1,000, $2,000, only for those not to be used if the program unfortunately cannot run this summer. So you'll have a lot more information on flights, but those are sort of the basics that I can tell you at this point in time. If anyone has any specific questions around flights that I didn't answer, please put them in the chat, you know, towards the bottom here so I can capture those. But I think from what I can see, at least towards around the 817, 818 timestamp, those look to be the questions around flights that I can see. Okay, Monica says, if my student is currently a senior and will graduate high school by next summer, so I assume by summer 2022, would he still be able to participate in this program is the question. And I'm just looking here because the answer to that is, I want to say yes, but I don't want to this comment. So just bear with me. I'm looking here. Okay. Because of COVID last year, we changed some of the the program requirements rather to be a bit more flexible. I'll get back to you on that. So let me loop back to that question. I'll put it in writing, Monica. McCoy said, yeah, sorry.
Sorry, Nate. I think
Yeah.
you skipped that question later in Japanese from Eden. His question, Eden, the question is there anyone who speaks Chinese Mandarin in the program? Okay, so usually we have some student from China who speaks Chinese. So we cannot guarantee there will be someone who speaks Chinese, but usually we have some student who speaks Chinese. Do you agree, Kazuki-san?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. It may be. Can.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then talked about McCoy's question. Nicole asked again, I think we've answered this at Sugo, but is it necessary to know Japanese if participating in this program? The answer to that was no, it's not necessary. As you mentioned at Sugo, of course, it would be helpful sort of while you're out and about to know some, you know, foundational Japanese, but the program itself is structured in English. The curriculum, classrooms in English, the activities, guided tours, you know, all the components will be in English. Christine asked, do students need to participate through a specific high school or can they sign up independently from high school? They can sign up independently from high school, so there doesn't need to be an affiliation, Christine, with any specific high school in the US. You can apply from anywhere. Dai asked another good question, which is what if we still need to stay in quarantine when we arrive in Tokyo? Will we have to arrive earlier? Very good question. What I can say about this, and Atsugo or Hazuki, feel free to comment as well, but for the high school summer abroad programs this upcoming summer, there's a few locations in particular right now, including Japan, that if you were to enter from the US, for instance, there would be a mandatory quarantine in place. In some instances, these are what we would be considering more soft quarantines, that being, you just can't go into restaurants or shops and things like that, but you can be out and about. And then there are what would be considered harder quarantines, more strict quarantines, which I would categorize the current quarantine climate in Japan as being more strict. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Itsuko or Hazuki, but the recent change to begin processing business and student visas for programs, for instance, over 3 months, which this one doesn't qualify for, but for longer term student programs, I believe that quarantine requirement with proof of vaccination just was reduced to 3 days. Is that correct? Do I have that right?
Actually 10 days for the student.
It's still 10 days. Okay.
Yeah, 3 days for the business people.
I see.
But yeah, 10 days for student, international student.
So essentially, this is how we approach quarantines when it comes to informing our decision to run a program or not run a program. If the quarantine is prohibitive, for instance, in terms of us being able to meet course objectives and meet program outcomes that we're aiming for, if we feel as though the length of quarantine, the rigidness of quarantine are going to have negative effects on the student experience, if, simply put, the quarantine period lasts for too long, on a 3-week program, 10 days of, relatively strict quarantine, that's my math isn't good, but that's more than a third of the program that you would be spending essentially in a dorm room. Considering those factors, if the quarantine was to continue to be 10 days, that would likely result in us not running the program, even if entry is required. Because at the end of the day, we want students to have a positive, fun, engaging experience. However, we don't know how things will play out for this upcoming summer, but given that business visas, for instance, they are reducing, as Itsuko said, the length of quarantine to 3 days, with the vaccination campaign in the US and in Japan continuing, with therapeutics coming out, for instance, with alternative options of sort of COVID mitigation being considered, it is possible that by next summer, if tourism is allowed, that the quarantine would be less than 10 days. And in which case, again, we'll use those same benchmarks that I just mentioned to you in deciding whether or not to operate the program if tourists are allowed to enter based off of the conditions put on them in terms of quarantine. It's not a direct way of answering your question, because really it depends on the conditions specifically. But I can say in confidence, for a 3-day quarantine, this past summer, we had experience operating programs, for instance, in Ireland, where they had a 5-day quarantine, and a few other locations that had relatively strict quarantines. Students still had a very positive experience. We simply transitioned to virtual, basically a virtual program for the first few days while they had to wait out those days in their room. I would imagine that in the case of Tokyo, we would try to consider a similar option if quarantine period is short enough where we feel, again, like students can still have a complete experience. Any comments to that point, either Itsuko or Hazuki?
Yeah, Nate, yeah, I totally agree with you, what you said earlier. And then, yeah, I know this is a very, everyone's concern, but also that it's very uncertain at this moment. But the good news is, yeah, that 10 days ago, the Japanese government lifted the travel restriction for business people and the long-term international student first. So we would like to see the situation in next 1 or 2 months. And then if the situation is get much better, actually at this moment, the situation in Japan is quite good. And then low new cases, only a few new cases every day for past few weeks. So if the situation continue going forward, even the cold winter, we are hoping the government will lift the travel restriction for all travelers, and then less quarantine period, like 3 days or so. So we will give the information as soon as we get from the government or any other institution.
Great. As we go back here, and thank you all for your patience. I appreciate everyone sticking around too. It's nice to see so many people
Yes.
sticking with us here. These are really great questions. So could you two comment? Philippe asks, what is the difference between the two tracks for the program for the anime and manga versus gaming track?
Let me try to answer this question. Literally, anime, manga, and then gaming is the different. So the first track, the focusing about anime, manga, we try to provide the specialist, like anime creator or the manga artist, and then we get to have the experience how to drawing the manga anime, and then also we learn the history about anime from 1970s until now. So you can experience the history and then also experience how to draw the anime and the manga. And also we plan to go the hotspot in anime, manga, how people enjoy in the people in Japan, such as Akihabara, and then also Nakano, and then some particular museum about manga. And then about gamings, that's quite different, probably we can sense. So we also get the specialist who is the creator for gaming, and then we learn how to do the basic programmings, and then also we learn the gaming history in Japan. Maybe you don't know the name of the game, but Pac-Man, that's very old. The game very popular in Japan, and then spreading all in the world. So we learn from those decades until now what is the most popular the game create from Japan. Those kind of things we are planning to put in a session. So I hope this answer you can sense of the differences from anime, manga versus gaming.
Great, thank you. As I scroll down here, and if I skip over a question that you asked, I think I'm capturing them all, but if I skip over one, just repost it so we make sure to get to it. So the next question that I can see is, if we apply for academic scholarships, will they look at the current school year grades or last year grades? So they would look at the grades that you submit at the time of application. So for instance, if you're submitting an application in the fall or by January, say 15th, we would ask that you submit for the most recent, or to include your transcript with the most recent semester, trimester's worth of courses that you have taken and received grades for. And I would say too, Sani, the scholarship website, there's a scholarship FAQ page that I'll link to with a lot more of that information. And Meredith asks, is any time during the gaming track spent on computers? Do either of you want to answer that one?
please correct me if I'm wrong, but the answer is yes, and then student will have lots of hands-on activities and workshop during both track, for anime game and yes, and even gaming track. Is it
Oh, yes.
correct, right? Yep.
Great. Okay, thank you. All right, and I did just put, I know someone asked I'm gonna put right now in the chat, there's 2 links. I'm linking to the scholarship website as well as to the scholarship FAQ page. So anyone who wants information on either of those, so either again, like the overview website that does have some FAQs attached to it, some funding statistics, and then the FAQ page itself that has some more information, more specifics around criteria, for instance, when you'll receive award notifications, how to apply, so on and so forth. That's all there in those 2 links that I just included. Okay. Talked about flights a bit. Okay, so Vina said okay, Vina asked me directly, but I'll mention this to everybody. Email right now. It's a good question. We do the best we can. We're a team right now in the Portland office of about 10. We receive, I would say right now we're averaging about 200 emails a day. So I would encourage you all, if you do not get a quick response to an email that you send within say 48 hours or so, please resend the email. We will get you. So in the case of Vina, and others, I know some of you have been waiting upwards of a week for a response. Don't hesitate to rewrite us. It's not, we want to answer any and all emails that we receive. It's just sometimes the volume can be pretty high. You can also call us. I'll put the number in the chat as well. It's on our website. You can also call us anytime between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We always do have people on the phones. If you do leave a voicemail, we'll get back to you as quickly as we possibly can. We want everyone's questions to be answered. There are just certain times of the year, this being one of those times specifically, where where volume's quite high. Okay. And Milena asks, what is the average price of the program without financial aid? And so there's only one price of the program without financial aid, and the program fee is $5,650. So that is the program fee without any scholarship funding provided by CIEE. This is more of a question for the 2 of you, Atsuko and Hazuki.
Yes.
For the gaming track, would we, for example, go tour studios like Square Enix, Atlas, or Nintendo?
Yes, the answer is yes. The specific studio we are visiting will be determined later, but we are planning to visit some studio or companies. Also, we will have some guest lectures from the professionals as well.
Great. Okay, Marina says, can you please go over the application process again? It sounded like applying for a merit-based scholarship may delay the decision making on the acceptance as compared to those who choose not to apply for a scholarship. So Marina, I would say 3 things in terms of that. Instead of going through the whole application process right now, I'm going to link in the chat to another website, so an application support website, which goes through all the details. You could also reference the 2 links that I just sent. So the scholarship website and scholarship FAQ page, those also have information on how to apply, timelines for when you would hear, so on and so forth. And lastly, I'm going to link to, put it in right now. There is an application support. Let's see here. There's an application support or an application process rather webinar. It's a workshop that we're going to host on this Thursday. So what I just put in the chat there, that link, if you were to register, you can register at that link. And that will be an application workshop that a few of my colleagues in Portland will be hosting, and they will be more than happy to go through any and all questions and portions of the application with you to make sure you're familiar with the application process and that all your questions are answered in regards to that. So you can link, see the link there. It's cia.org/GNFair. Okay. And then a good time to buy plane tickets. I mentioned that earlier. Essentially, at this point in time, for this program specifically, I would suggest that you not buy plane tickets now, and that we wait a little bit longer to understand entry requirements and COVID conditions, restrictions, mitigation strategies, so on and so forth. At this point, I am sort of feeling as though we'll likely initiate ticket purchases for flights sometime probably January at the absolute earliest, could be more likely February, March, or even into early April. Again, completely dependent on entry requirements. Okay. Okay, so sorry if I mispronounce your name, but Adonai says, I'm planning on going to Kyoto for my first session and then to Tokyo's second session. Would there have to be anything special for me to do? Would there have to be anything special for me to do in regards to when the 10th arrives? So I assume you mean in terms of arrival into Tokyo from Kyoto. And as far as that goes, Adonai, and sorry again if I'm mispronouncing your name, we're happy to provide you with logistical support in terms of confirming for you how to get from Kyoto to Tokyo, likely via high-speed train, I would imagine, and where to meet, who to call if you need instructions or help in terms of getting to where you need to go, all of those details. So what we normally do is a few weeks out from the start of the program, we'll send all that information out, the general information for students. In your case, if you're doing 2 sessions, what you should do is speak directly to David, who Atsuko introduced during one of the preliminary slides that we went through. He is the center director in Kyoto, and he's going to be more than happy to help support in making sure that you have logistical arrangements made. And then, of course, Atsuko and Hazuki and their team will be happy to greet you when you arrive in Tokyo. So plenty of time to figure that out, but you will have support. If a student gets sick, is there a clinic on site? Or I think that's the question. If the student gets sick, is there a clinic with a doctor on site?
In CIE Tokyo, there is no medical doctor on site program, but it's one of big advantage in Tokyo. Actually, there are a bunch of the many clinics, hospital, very nearby in a town. So if a student gets sick, and then of course it's very accessible and then easy access to go the clinic, hospital. And then of course there is program leaders and then also the CI staff in Tokyo. We will go the clinic and then hospital with student, and then will help to translate the all procedure with doctor.
Yes, and then in addition to what Hazuki said, specifically for the TCYH area, there are many clinics. Also, there is one big full services hospital also. So, and then as she mentioned, CIA staff will be happy to support in language translation and communication with doctors or drugstores as well. And then so in case of you get sick, yeah, we will provide the services.
Shannon, I believe that's where we are. Let me see. Yep. Okay. And again, 849 timestamp. I put on the scholarship website link, the scholarship FAQ page link, just as a reminder there. And then actually, before I forget, I'm going to put in here also the application support, the general application support website, which has a lot of information on the standard application tasks themselves. So all of the tasks there are listed there with drop downs that give descriptions of how to complete each specific task itself. That's both for the standard program application as well as for the scholarship application tasks. So this is going to be a very helpful link that I'm about to post here. There are also YouTube tutorials on exactly, like it will screenshot for you the application task itself that's being described and will walk you through how to complete it. So if you are having any problems whatsoever in completing the application or have any questions about what the tasks are asking, your first stop should be this website. So I am linking to it right now. That's a great resource. Shannon asks, if not using scholarships, can you detail when payment is due and what payment is accepted? And if canceled for COVID restrictions, how would that work for a refund or a credit? Okay, so let's start there with the second part of the question. So if the program is canceled for COVID restrictions, how would it work in terms of receiving a refund or a credit for the program? So I also linked at 9 o'clock, the 9 o'clock timestamp, to the Program Assurance Advantage website. So I'll just read off this because the language is quite clear. Should a health, safety, or security concern cause CIEE to cancel or suspend this program on or before the program start date, as a confirmed student on the program, you're fully entitled to the following options. Okay, so that's to say, if certain, we talked about one example of why we may cancel a program. If there is a prohibitive quarantine in place, we would go ahead and cancel the program. If the COVID numbers, specifically what we look at, hospitalization capacity, intensive care beds, if those capacity figures didn't meet our threshold to be operating in a location, we would cancel the program. There's other conditions as well, but those are just a few that I wanted to highlight. We have, over the last 18 months, have made many decisions to cancel programs, especially earlier on in COVID. The Program Assurance Advantage that I linked to, that I just cited, that provides information as to what conditions would result in a cancellation and then what your options would be. So essentially what your options would be is you would have the option of changing to an equivalent program. So you could change programs to another program. If there's a cost difference, either if the program costs more money or the program costs less money, we would either refund you the difference or you would have to pay the difference. Or if the program costs the same amount of money, it would be a wash. You could defer to next summer, so summer 2023, at no cost. You could simply defer. You could get a full refund for the CIE fees that you paid. The only fee that's not refundable is a $25 application fee. The rest of the fees, if you were to have paid, for instance, the $1,000 confirmation deposit, or if you paid for the full program, those fees would all be refundable if we canceled the program. All right, so I think I answered that question, Shannon. Meredith says, if for some reason the trip can occur, do we get, okay, so yeah, so Meredith, I think I just hit on that, but if for some reason this trip cannot occur, do we get priority in switching to a different program, or would we have to go through the whole application process again? You would not have to go through the whole application process again. You would give us your preference, your first, second, third choice preference for a different program, and we would do our absolute best to fit you into your first priority preference. There may be instances where a program, for instance, is full. It's hard to say if that would be the case or not at this point, but we would do the best we can to get you into your preferred alternative program, but we would ask for your top 3 options. You would not have to complete the whole application though. Yeah, and I think that option that you're suggesting there would be okay, but again, as we get closer to the start of the program, this group, Atsuko, Hazuki, David, they'll all be more than happy to answer, like, and help you set up whatever plans that you want to book. At this point, does anyone have any? There's a couple direct messages to me that I'll respond to as well here, but does anyone else have any other general questions? All right. I don't see, let me see if there's anything else. Okay, yeah, another good question. Okay. So Adone asks, will we be able to connect with other students prior to arriving in Japan? The answer is yes. So there's a few things that we're going to do. Once confirmed on the program, students will have access. We use Canvas, which is like Blackboard for those that may be using Blackboard in their schools at home. It's essentially like a I don't know how you would describe it. So like a virtual or like a web platform learning space. I don't know, where you can teach courses and have chat rooms and so on and so forth. A lot of you probably use similar things. Schoolology, for instance, is another popular one that a lot of American schools use right now. But essentially, we will enroll everyone into a pre-departure Canvas course that everyone is required to complete. There are chat rooms and discussion boards and so on and so forth there by program to connect students. So that's one way students can connect. Alternatively, we're also going to be organizing at least 1 or 2 pre-departure orientation, virtual orientation workshops, kind of like this, but designed to be very much engaging and collaborative spaces where the group, so that being the team in Tokyo, like Hazuki and Atsuko, your program leaders who would be traveling with you from the US, all of your peers would come together in a virtual space, either on Zoom or Microsoft Teams, and have conversations around things like academics and expectations and culture shock and diversity, inclusion topics, all sorts of things. So there will be a few different opportunities prior to the start of the program to get to know one another. So that's how I would respond to that. Yep, I think those are all the public questions that I can see right now. For anyone who asks a direct message question, if you want to hold on for a few minutes, I'll respond directly to you once we wrap up with my answers, just so you have that. Any other general questions? Maybe we give it another 30 seconds or so for anyone to ask any closing questions before I throw it back over to you two, Atsuko and Hazuki, for any comments that you have as we wrap up. And Dai did just ask, are our roommates randomly selected? Do either of you want to mention on that?
Yes. We randomly select the roommates, probably name order, alphabetical order, those kind of system we probably plan to.
Okay. This chat, the chat log itself, I believe will also, do you know, Atsuko, will the chat log also be distributed in addition to the recording? I believe it will be.
Yeah, I believe so too. Yeah.
Okay. The links.
We have some question about the roommate request. when they join as a friend or siblings, we can have that request, right? If it's the same gender, right? It's the same gender. In one room, it's the same gender, so we can have that request. We're not guaranteed, but we can have the request if you have any friend or siblings to join together.
Any other questions? All right. I think we can probably wrap up. The last thing that I'm going to put in here is the CIEE phone number, just so folks have that as well. But while I post that, any closing comments either Atsuka or Hazuki that you would like to mention?
Any comment from Hazuki-san first? Final comment?
Yes, I hear it's gonna be final comment, but I can't see your face here, but I really look forward to meet in person hopefully next year. And then summer in Tokyo, May, June, July, it's very sticky, humid. The climate, the weather is very humidity. So, but very exciting city Tokyo is. So I really looking forward to meet you in person next year in summer.
Thank you. Yeah, once again, thank you very much for joining this session today, late in the evening in the US. And I really appreciate for your participation and lots of questions. So please feel free to contact us if